Wow. Wow. What an afternoon. What an afternoon. The leftovers aren't even finished ate yet. Like we still got them in the fridge and we've already got a new visor in town. Wow. An emergency pod, Lane State University edition of the Russo and Goodwin show. And I am your co-host for the afternoon. I am Coach Trey. Russo is here. He has got a fresh shaved face, a new Apple
Yeah,
Watch band, and a Hawaiian shirt. And we're ready to get active.
dude.
Man, how we feeling, baby? Visors
All
up?
right, dude. Visors up. It's been a long day. The day got a little interesting towards the later half of the afternoon, but just all day long I've been so excited ever since about 2 a.m. Um, that was kind of when it was made official. So happy, man. We got our guy.
It honestly couldn't have been a more like Sunday SEC cinema. So while we let everybody file in here, because we were scheduled to go at 7 o'clock tonight, so we are going to let a few more people filter in here before we start going through a couple of the processes of events. We're gonna have full disclosure here. We don't have a script. we, we don't have a
Didn't have
script.
one for Brian Kelly either. So
No, and it was our best one. It was our
yeah,
most viewed show. And for those of you that have been giving us likes, and for those of you that have been giving us a little shout out, it has been unbelievably awesome. The viewers are slowly ticking up, and the followers are slowly ticking up. We've been putting a lot of effort, literally several hours a week, into this show. And so, what I will what I will comfortably say is that I will give you literally everything that I know up until this point, now that like the dust has settled, now that it's officially official where this started. We're going to try not to go for too long because it is a little bit late on a Sunday. People have work in the morning. I forgot I was employed, to be honest. I mean, we've been out of work for 4 days now. So for all intents and purposes, we are very much going to give you everything that you guys want. We're going to give our opinions, our thoughts, how it all came about. But first and foremost, I just before we go deep dive on things, the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of Lane Kiffin as the newest head coach of the Fighting Tigers of LSU, or should I say the Fighting Visors?
Fighting Visors, Lane State University. Offense, which is a
Okay.
total 180 from what you watched not only yesterday but practically the entire season, and just a player's coach, I would say. Lane's got when's the last time we've had a player's coach since right? I mean, we had Brian
Yep.
Kelly, who was more of a GM, didn't really resonate. All you saw when you saw Brian Kelly was just him yelling at his players nonstop.
Yeah.
And Lane's not shy from that, but Lane likes to get down there and have fun with the boys too. So that on top of everything else is going to be fun for me. And like you said earlier, I'm already excited for next year, man. Like it's about to be December, and we're usually in about July before we're talking about excitement for building for college football. But man, this is a huge ad. It took a while for us to get here, but yeah, for sure, I would say just his energy, he's a player's coach, and I think that's something you need to be at LSU, at least in this day and age. So
Wow. So the one thing that I want to get across is for those that are not on board with this hire. I know that it's a very small party. Um, it's a very very easy to get into restaurant for the restaurant of not on the Kiffin train. That is a very small collection of people. There are going to be some, and I'm certain that someone is going to go, we want John Summerall, or we wanted we're we're into the camp of promoting Blake Baker. We were in the camp of whoever. So for if that's you, okay, if that's you, first of all, welcome. Um, check please if that's the restaurant you're eating at, because there's not a lot for you to order. Okay. This coaching search started and ended with what I would basically say is this started and ended with him. There were immediate shout out to Nick Danger out there in the people streets, is a very firm listener and an avid commenter. Revenge is a dish best served cold. Nick Danger, Sunday, November 30th, 2025, 19:01 p.m. Little military time. Shout out. Listen, this was their guy. Yes, Nick Saban got a call. The first person that got a phone call, I feel very comfortable telling you that Nick Saban was the first person that got a phone call. Says, no thanks. Like, I have a pretty cushy job, pretty good gig. The very next thing he said was, you need to hire Lane Kiffin. The very next phone call that happened was to Lane Kiffin. And immediately after that, you get a Dan Lanning call, which immediately, because you have to do your due diligence, because you don't know who will and won't want it if you don't ask, right? And Dan Lanning was completely fine, the head coach at Oregon, for those of you that don't know. And they're going to give him the money. They didn't even have to give him an extension. Like they probably could have just like drove up a Rolls Royce up to his crib with like sacks of 50s and just said, we don't need to know what you want to do or do want to do, because we know for a fact that the only thing you need is to stay here. So if you ever were in the camp that this wasn't going to happen, we understand insecurity is a thing. Exactly half of the people here talking right now were firmly confident in the hire. And I will say, before I give you the process of how this all went down, be honest, Bruce. Where were you at your lowest point? Give me a percentage that he was coming at your lowest point.
When I texted you, I believe that was Monday or Tuesday. I was like, he's going to Florida, dude. He's just going to Florida.
And you took screenshots. Russo says, I'm screenshotting.
Yeah. It was a little bit of reverse psychology, but for sure I was nervous. I thought he was off to Florida. I think I guess from a media standpoint, there was a lot of silence after the weekend, right? The deal got leaked.
Yep.
And I thought, man, not good, because once your numbers are out, others can match, and we know Florida got a bank over there. So I figured if they were going to offer a comparable deal to those numbers, he could be gone. So yeah, hand to heart was for sure at my lowest early in the week. But then after Friday happens, Ole Miss wins, and then the delay on Saturday, like the more Saturday like went forward with the day, the more confident I got, because it's just like at what point, what are we doing here? Like, and I think everyone knew what the gig was. It was Lane wanted to coach. I think we all said this Thursday. Lane wanted to coach, but he wanted to leave. That's where he was at. But he wanted to coach this team to its finish. And I think the reason this kind of got a little ugly was because I don't know him personally, and I could be wrong, but just from the outside looking in, I think Keith Carter dragged us along way too much, in my opinion. I think that situation could have been nipped in the butt really quickly, and it wasn't. And that's why you kind of saw this little ugly little breakup in the middle of the night. So,
dude.
But yeah, at my lowest Monday, Tuesday, after Friday, I felt pretty confident.
What pisses me off about the whole thing, and again, it worked out in our favor, right? And it worked out in our favor because he was always going to leave. And it's easy to go, oh, hindsight's 2020. Okay, well, go give me like 5 minutes to explain to you why he was always going to be here or somewhere different. Okay. I firmly, truth, and a lot of people have said this, I firmly believe that if this decision had to be made a month ago, he would have been at Florida, because Florida fired their coach a week before you did. And immediately the first person that they called was Lane Kiffin. Here's the problem. Lane Kiffin could have been the Florida coach last year. Okay. Florida could have moved on from Billy at that point. But Billy ends up winning a couple of games at the end of the year, and Scott Strickland kind of waffled a little bit on the belief on, is he going to be here? Is he not going to be here? You waited to see what you could get out of a healthy quarterback situation. And it was DJ Lagway's not healthy. We have the chance. Like, if we invest in the roster, and dude, they were good. Like, the defense was good, but Billy was never going to take his hands off the wheel. He was never going to stop play calling. And for in a complete different realm for Ole Miss and for LSU, you wanted the head coach to call plays. Like, who wouldn't want Lane Kiffin? They have the number 2 offense in the nation right now. I'll take that. Does anyone think that Coach Weiss is actually calling every single play? Now, it's not fair to not give him credit, but clearly he's a brilliant offensive mind with Lane Kiffin's blueprints all over it. And in LSU, Brian Kelly had the ability to call plays and did not. You saw him do it at the end of last year, and it was the best the offense looked. You found Chris Hilton. You had the ball over the top. The offense never looked better at the end of the season last year. And so we thought surely it would be like you're probably going to lose Joe Sloan at some point during the year because Brian's going to have to call the plays again, and he did not want to. The desire wasn't there. So in a world where you needed your head coach to pick up the play sheet, Billy Napier apparently wouldn't let it go. And so that was ultimately his downfall. But I don't want to get too far away from the point. The point is, you could have gotten Lane last year, and Lane would have left. It was the perfect chance. They had spent all that money on that team. That was their team. They had the NIL roster, the number 1 transfer portal class, all the money invested, the draft picks, the D line. They had everything that they needed. They lose ultimately their chance to go to the college football playoff. At that point, Florida could have easily gone and gotten him. Fast forward a year, almost a year, call it 9 months, and now Florida finally fires Billy Napier, and you're in this chance again. And dude, for those of you that this is just pulled out of thin air, Baton Rouge is not that big of a town, okay? Louisiana is not that big of a state, and Baton Rouge is not that big of a town. Someone that does this for a living isn't hard to find. And if you are of the variety of just knowing casually a few people, and you've got any understanding of how these coaching searches goes over the time, and Russo and I are not, we're young enough to still be newer and doing podcasts on it, but old enough to have seen these movies before. Guys, this was a thing 3 weeks ago. Like, I believe a month ago that Lane actually did believe he was going to be the head coach at Florida. But you never got so far down the road with Florida that Lane got with LSU 2 weeks ago or even 1 week ago. So when you go and visit Florida and you're in person, Layla does rather, but then Thursday schedules the trip to come here. And it was almost as if people thought that she went to Florida on Sunday and like home and scheduled, to go to LSU the next day. And I was going, hey. She was going to go to both places. They were both scheduled. They had to have been scheduled several days ago. They wouldn't have been able to make arrangements on that short of time. You're not going to get a call at, 8:30 at night that someone's, unless it's Lane, right? So as soon as Layla got here, brother, all he needed was the okay. And since then, his daughter's been back here at the lake and at events and at boosters events. She's been at the lake decorating children's hospital rooms. And again, good for her, man. Like, being a philanthropic 20-year-old, like, we weren't philanthropic at 20. You know what I'm saying? And so all of these dominoes are like rolling into effect, but we're just sitting here waiting. Well, what happened is that Ole Miss, for all intents and purposes, and I know that my uncles listen to this show, I apologize, they shit the bed. They did. They had the ability. Casey, their athletics director at Ole Miss had the ability to to stop this. Lane was not going to just up and change his mind from wanting the job just because he wanted to coach his kids. It was either going to be, you have to make me leave or I'm going to coach my team. Lane walked into that office, okay, and told him to his face, I want to coach this team. Fire me, ho. I said this 2 weeks ago. I said this 2 weeks ago on the show. I told you last week on the show. I told you this week on the show. Lane is not going to let them big boy him. Lane has all the cards. They want to keep Lane, and Lane wants to coach his team. And you know why they did it, Roos? because they wanted to win. They wanted to get to the playoffs. And Lane basically said, I'll get you there. And you're an idiot if you don't let me coach in the SEC championship game. So I absolutely believe that this would not be as much as the case as it was. I told you all along on Tuesday and on our Thursday show that the hope from LSU, the desire was that Monday at the podium and the hat and the visor and the polo. That was their hope. But if Auburn beats Bama, then what? There's no reason to believe that Ole Miss would not have waffled again for another week. And I think we'd be doing this now a week later, because I do believe sincerely that he wanted to coach his team. And
Yeah,
they wouldn't let him.
and I mean, I think there's been some conflicts with Tulane letting John Summerall finish it
We're
out,
getting to that.
and same with Golish, I believe, if they do make it or whatever that may be. And I just think to that, those are just different scenarios, right? I mean, this is a pretty big conflict of interest. Now, I'm not backing the decision to not let him coach, but you can't sit here and also tell me like, oh, why isn't John Summerall getting heat? Well, he's not going to a rival. He's not going in conference. So like me personally, I get like there shouldn't be a comparison on that. I do think they should have let him coach. Personally, and I would have been fine as an LSU fan, waiting as long as he had given his commitment to us like at this point in time. But man, just an ugly breakup. I mean, it's been bad today. With regards to that, how much of the decision was his daughter wanting?
Very little.
I don't think. Now this has more of an impact of maybe Witt staying, possibly. Like I think that's more the impact, if anything. Like I think it's now that he's here, he probably stays. But who knows, man? I mean, he had an injury-ridden season. You would hope he comes back and plays. This was West last year, right?
Yeah, West no longer has any eligibility.
So,
Zach does.
If he's smart, he stays. He's going to make a killing in NIL, and if you're a player, you're now getting a larger pool, given this contract move. So, like, if you're a player, your money might get up a little bit. Now, obviously, I think a lot of that money is going to go to transfers too, but you're going to get paid if you're Whit Weeks. You're for sure going to get paid. You're the face of the defense, like especially with Harold probably going. I mean, more than likely,
you're going to give him 18.
Yeah, you're going to give him 18.
You're going to give him 18.
100%.
It would be the most obvious 18 that we've had at LSU in 10 years.
Yeah. 100%. And you improve your draft stock. I think given this year, you were going to be projected relatively high, but just the injuries kind of killed his momentum all season. What does it hurt? This is going to be a common theme going forward with athletes. Why not go make a bag? He's going to probably – what do you think he made this year in NIL? For sure, 6 figures. I mean, like, no doubt 6 figures, but, like, we're talking, like, probably upwards, closer to 7, if I had to guess.
I don't want to speculate, but I'm yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm not.
Yeah.
It's off the record, and we don't know. Like, I think a lot of people don't know, but, like, it would probably be closer to the 7-figure number. Why wouldn't you come back? You know?
So, okay. I said this a few weeks ago. If Witt's thing is that Blake needs to stay. So Blake needs to stay. However, if Blake
is going to be tough.
If Blake does not stay, the only other person that could convince him to stay would be Lane. So you weren't going to get like a different head coach and then lose Blake and then Witt stay. No. It's I need Blake, but if something happens and he goes and gets a head coach job which means like you basically don't kick him out the building, right? Like if Lane comes and tells Pete Golding that he's coming, I don't think that and Blake's out. I don't think that you're getting Witt back. Witt'll just go to the draft, but
and yeah,
right, like that's been the thing. We've been told that, and
yeah.
I think also too, if you're okay, if you're a defensive coach, if you're a defensive player, assuming that you don't have Blake leave for the Tulane job, which maybe there's a head coach that maybe got fired a week before Brian Kelly that they're also looking at that head coach job. I mean, there's no hiding it. I mean, Billy came from UL. Billy went to Florida. Why would he not want to go and coach Tulane? That job just came open. They got a decent NIL collective happening right now. You already know how much money they'd be willing to pay Summerall, upwards at 4 or 5 million or whatever the case may be. Like, Billy should go and try and take that job. And if Billy goes and gets the Tulane job, and if Blake gets the chance to stay put, everyone on the defensive side of the ball would likely want to stay as long as Blake wants them to stay, right? Unless they go and get poached. If, for example, Ohio State comes and gets Peoples or whatever. But like, I have a very sneaky suspicion that there has been conversations from Verge already, especially now that Pete Jenkins, that Pete has been kept at Ole Miss as the head coach, and that, hey, listen, brother, as long as Blake doesn't get a head job, you can't. Like, you got to leave him. So Coach O assistant hire for T-Pat bringing that up. I don't know why you would want to kick Kyle Williams out of the door like that. Your defensive line has actually been playing really well. You haven't had the sack numbers, but I think that's probably more along the lines of, maybe your edges not being asked to just get on after it, kind of like what we would have thought. We were, had some injuries there. Gabe Relaford was really your tribal leader, and getting after the quarterback and setting the edge. And so I just think that you've probably been asked to do a lot there. I mean, several fourth down stops. There's multiple this year on the road at Alabama, on the road twice at Oklahoma. You're getting fourth down stops. The defensive line, like, as long as you can get players, I think the D line's fine. If you had the choice, O or Kyle, I mean, obviously one can recruit better than the other, but I don't think that Kyle has done a bad job to just go and kick him out the door. I think Blake would have the ability to make that decision, but ultimately the offensive staff, so for those of you thinking that Corey Raymond's going to hit the road, what dumb idiot would come into this building and not want to keep Corey Raymond? I don't think that Lane is that stupid. I don't. I'm sorry. Which that's the side of the ball people cared about anyway, Russo. The only person on the offensive side of the ball that everyone has talked about, so let's bring it up, is Frank Wilson. Guys, I'm telling you right now, hear it from me, hear my heart. Frank's fine. Frank wants to be here. And as long as Frank wants to be here, Frank will be here. Granted, the running back coach situation for Lane is going to be interesting because it feels like he'd come too, right? So what do you ask Frank? Do you elevate Frank to a different role, maybe off field, keep him on? Like, how do you,
like an assistant, maybe?
Right, like you're bringing in his GM is what they're saying. So does Austin Thomas maybe get moved to a different position? Does Austin maybe get the chance to maybe go to the university he was at previously under a regime he's familiar with? So where exactly? But I am telling you, there are like 5 things that Lane was told before he took this job. One of which you see on Twitter right now is him going and visiting Lamar Brown as he gets here. The Escalade or the Tahoe took him from the airport to Lamar's crib. So that's one of the 5 things. One of them is Corey Raymond stays, Frank stays, and if you know what's good for you, you will go and have some sincere conversations with these recruits with signing day literally on Wednesday, and we've talked none about it yet because of this. So for those
you've
of
already
you
seen several decommits from Ole Miss.
Of course, Kyle and Billy got hit the transfer portal too.
Some of those being Louisiana kids that were
And,
committed to Ole Miss.
and you have the right. You have the right. But what is your disposition overall? Since we're 25 minutes in and we got 7 live, those of you that are here, give us a little thumbs up or like a little something on the YouTube. Give us a like if or a follow rather if you don't already do that. But what are your thoughts? Because I don't want to take all night to do this. What are your immediate thoughts on if you could have drawn this up when we talked about this on the show at the end of last just a few days ago? It was, can you drag this out? Can Florida go and get their guy? Can Auburn go and get their guy? And can then Tulane maybe go and get a guy? And you maybe get a chance to have Lane and Blake. If that is the case, what are
Pretty
your
fun.
oh, dude?
Those two just look like they would have a good time on the field together. You know what I'm saying? Like I think they'd have a good chemistry. Tulane released a statement basically saying they'll prefer someone with head coaching experience. They didn't like basically shun the idea of a coordinator, but something tells me Billy gets the nod over Baker, and maybe Baker wants to see this through. Maybe Tulane's not the only option. Maybe there's more options down the line for Blake, which personally I think would be the smart decision if he were to stay, see this out for a year. And look, he's already one of the most paid, or I would say the richest offensive coordinator, at least top 5 in the country. So like if your job's not there, is Tulane really going to be your job? I would say that there's some high expectations with Tulane that Summerall left you now. I mean, you're going to have to probably win 9 or 10 games a season. That wasn't easy by him.
Mm-mm.
Is that the job you want,
It's not
or
the
would
only
you
job that
wait?
opened today either.
Would you wait for another SEC job? Possibly.
My literal biggest fear was that Eli Drink would have dipped, and you'd have gotten a chance to see Blake go and make his remarriage with Mizzou. And it's not over yet because there's still the chance that he, but this was literally what we wanted, right? Like how it fell. Summerall gets to Florida. Auburn goes and gets their guy. Ole Miss just promotes, and it's like it almost felt like you weren't gonna get Lane without Pete Golding. And we're sitting here, and me and you were just doing this here, like praying to Christ that they would have the balls to promote Pete. And when it was almost like no way, no way. So it's gonna be hard for you to poach their defensive staff because Pete obviously has his guys there. But in reality, brother, in reality,
This is fine.
you've got the staff. You like Lane. Hey, Bubba, listen to me. Hey. I'm gonna speak into the mouthpiece clearly. One side of the ball is fine. You don't need to worry about it. I need you to invest in throwing the ball over the middle of the field and keeping
Mm-hmm.
Harlem Berry happy and Trades Green upright and keeping us scoring touchdowns and
Baker will do his thing.
maybe scoring in the red zone. Thoughts?
Baker will do his thing. And look, miss me with the defense sucked yesterday. They gave up 2 bad plays. They gave up 2. No,
No, but
Lane's got we wish.
Rome's not built in the day, baby.
The defense played their butts off yesterday, just like for the majority of the season. And yeah, they gave up 2 bad plays. They had 2 mistakes. It happens. And it just so happened to result in touchdowns. But maybe if your freaking offense could at least stay on the field for more than 10 minutes and give you a couple of first downs outside of 1 or 2 drives, your defense isn't in that position. They're rested. They're not so relied on.
Mm-hmm.
So like I agree. I think Golding being hired leaves the door open for this combo of Baker with Lane, and I hope it happens. But don't rule it out. He could take a head coaching job, but fingers crossed still.
And again, and not to to make this more scary than it already is, but the reality of it all, Bubba, is that you can't have your cake and eat it too in life, in especially football coaching. You you want a new job, but you don't want to lose the recruits. You want to coach your kids, but you also don't want to miss a chance at winning championships. It's not really possible for you to always get what you want. It seems like Lane is trying to get everything that he wants here at LSU since Ole Miss wouldn't give it to him. And if you are the person that isn't excited about Lane Kiffin throwing the football to Louisiana receivers, you are on crystallized, home cooked, no teeth, no socks, barefoot meth. That is literally a match made in heaven.
Can't wait, dude. I'm
It
so
is.
excited.
Can we get matching visors?
I'll have to get one. I will have to get
Literally,
one.
literally me and my girlfriend's family were talking about getting matching visors. Shout out Nick, Cody, and Drew. We were all talking about getting matching visors because we're going to Disney World in like the end of March. So we all want to get matching visors. We were talking about like a polo that literally doesn't even have like the LSU. It's just a visor with the LSU on it. It's like as the logo. So if there's anything that we've learned, it is that all of this was all talked about. There was a gentleman's agreement. He never would sign it. LSU was always firm and confident. It was only a matter of how much rope are they going to let him have? How long are they going to let him coach? They were never going to just let him coach in the playoffs while going and leaving for another team, despite what Nick thought, that they, Mike would do. He was basically begging on College Game Day, let him coach. And so we finally get our guy, and they finally get their coach. They're looking for a press conference tomorrow. I don't have a time for that yet. I haven't even had time to even look at Twitter. I haven't had
Like
time to go to
11 or 12, I think, is what
before
Russo
lunch.
said.
Felt like it.
But yeah, I'm pumped, man. But we're not done yet. We gotta follow the Baker situation, and then we've got recruiting off the rip. So
Well, he's already getting started, and most of this has already been done by Frank and Austin anyway. Let's be real, most of this has already been done by Frank, and so you're
yeah,
so let's not act like the players aren't and the recruits don't already know what was up.
I hate that this was an ugly breakup because it shouldn't have been. I think Ole Miss was a little butthurt that this was happening, and I think they could have just came out and said, "Hey, like we just can't let him coach. Like we appreciate everything Lane's done, but like we just can't let him coach." If you would have come out and said that like early, like even just as of Friday or after the game, like that's fine. But the fact that you waited so long, you like
Yes.
basically made him
Yes.
feel like make him look like the bad guy, and I hate that
Yes.
because it shouldn't have been that way. And they have every part to blame in this, and I think it was just a lot of jealousy, and I think part of that was hiring Golding. I mean, I'm not saying he didn't deserve it, but I think definitely part of that was to kind of keep him from, because like Lane basically said, "Who's coming with me? Here's the plane. Everyone in the staff has a job if you come on the plane."
We were all young when this happened. Coach Saban literally did that at State. When he left for LSU, he literally, there's a book written that you can go and read. He legitimately went and told the AD, "I'm leaving for LSU." He walked to the next building and said, "Who in here wants to go to LSU?" And it's not like they had iPhones back then. And literally in a room, and people went, like, that's how it happened. And then there was people that, well, I got to talk to my wife. And he goes, "Okay, you've got 12 hours.
I think that's what he wanted to do. I think he wanted it to be a cordial. He wanted to coach, and then he was like, "Hey, I'm going to LSU. Who's coming with me?" But because the way it played out, it looked horrible. Because like that's what you have to do that.
That's what I'm saying, right? This is how coaching goes.
Yeah, so it's like Ole Miss put him in that predicament to make him look like the bad guy, and now he's a villain. When that's the sad part to me, because he did so much for that university. Like that should have ended on a good note.
Yes.
This didn't have to end this way.
You let him his silence, you let the days being strung along to think you had a chance that you could stay,
Yeah,
that you were going to get back together with your ex.
horrible.
They made the mistake. KC, their AD, made the mistake of having the poor leadership to think that the longer this drug out, that he would have a change of heart. And it was kind of like all they could do, because they were saying, hey man, if you're gonna go, we need you to go because we want Summerall, because Summerall had ties there. And Lane said, but I want to coach my team. You let the silence tell you that there was a chance this could go a different way. And instead of having a firm decision and saying, listen, we love you, we respect you, thank you for getting us here, but we'll take it from here. You had the chance on Thursday when you went to, or Friday, was it, after the Egg Bowl ended, you could have said right then and there, we're done, you're out, we're fine. And you could have went and got Summerall before he went to Florida. Summerall waited till Sunday to make it official with Florida to give you a little bit more chance, and you still folded. And that's your fault. That's poor leadership. That's not LSU's fault. LSU just wanted to coach. And also, for those of you that are too ignorant enough to know that the money wasn't that different, Lane didn't decide to go to LSU because they're paying like double his contract or whatever. Are you kidding me? The money is comparable. He's going there because they're better than you. They have more of a realistic reality in the realm of college football. And this isn't like a you suck thing. Ole Miss beat your ass this year. And what was their shittiest game of the year? They won the game. Neither team played well, and they still beat you. They have one loss this year, and we're beating Georgia by double digits in the fourth quarter. Ole Miss is better than LSU right now. That's the point. That is why your coach wants to come to the bigger university, because if he can do that there with the portal and mid recruiting, what can you do with the portal and top 5 and top 10 recruiting? That's the point. That is a hard pill to swallow for people. And I would get that if I were an Ole Miss fan too. And I'm sorry that you have to feel that way. And it sucks. And I hate this for Ole Miss fans, because Ole Miss fans are genuinely pretty cool. But tonight,
he is enemy number one, and I think that was
and he deserves it. He deserves it. He deserves it. But for them to say that like that he's a liar, he does, bro. What would you have him do? He begged to stay. Your AD let this drag on. This could have been a quick, fast breakup where no one saw it on Instagram and friends weren't involved. You let it go this long.
Yeah, no, they have every part to blame in this. And shout out Snead, dude. Go Longhorns. We'll have you're gonna be a part of the conversation for the next couple of weeks on whether you get into the playoffs. So we'll definitely break that down this coming Thursday. But yeah, man, I just hate it because I think Lane deserved a little bit of criticism, but this shouldn't have been he shouldn't have been getting birds on the tarmac, on his way out.
No.
Like, I think that's what's sad about all this, because I think he genuinely did care, and this wasn't a move like his previous ones. I think he genuinely cared. He wanted to coach his team, and I think because the AD and them dragged this along so much and tried to guilt him into it, it was a bad breakup, and I hate it. But I'm glad he's here. At the end of the day, I'm glad he's here. We've got our guy. A couple more dominoes need to come down, and we'll have a huge. We aren't going there. All the teams. They're plus 250 on FanDuel, which is a good bet.
And there's a good point too, by the way, for Smallcraft US. Love the visor. Shout out, baby. I actually had I got this last year for Christmas. I've been waiting to break this out. The Hire just woke up a sleeping giant. He's going to reestablish the physicality and the swag. That's the point. Here's something too. Last point before we try to wrap this up here. All the teams that are in one, we aren't going to shit. Greg, I would not be so steadfast in believing that.
I think y'all sneak in. But we'll break that down next week.
Here's the point. Russo just said it. You'll sneak in because they want you in, Buck. They do. You don't want Texas in the playoff? Are you kidding me? How much money they'll make? This is all about money. That's why they want to extend the playoff, because they want more money. And Lane in establishing physicality, Lane Kiffin makes you run the football. Lane Kiffin teams run that rock, dog. They run that rock. And that's what LSU needs. That's why he wants to come here. He sees what can be. He sees the legacy that he can live. And so now every year you just have to hope that Alabama doesn't come and knock. So, so that's the game you get to play. But as it stands for a 40-minute show, Texas fans suck. We're not going to have fighting in the chat from T-Pat. But I will say this Texas fan is a good guy. We like that. We like that.
Oh shit.
So that was actually a really good way to culminate to that.
Ole
But
Miss
we are
already stripped his Twitter badge.
Man, this is gonna be so petty. This is gonna be so petty.
Oh man.
I'm here for it too. I want all the tweets, dude. I want all the tweets because there's only one more domino left to come here. If there's only one more domino, and he's currently coaching basketball at NC State, but we'll save that conversation for another day.
All right, guys. 40 minutes, our second emergency pod, probably our last one of the season, I would say.
Well,
unless
we hope.
we hope, God. Yeah, so we will be back on early in the week for catching up with Coach, and we'll break down the LSU Oklahoma game because we didn't even have to talk about that given the circumstances of what's taking place today. And then Thursday we'll get together again and talk more of this. Hopefully we'll have some more answers and clarity to the situation. We'll have a press conference going. Go snap your workout. Okay, sick, dude. Sick, man. But anyways, heck yeah. We'll see y'all next week, guys.